welcome to another edition of Wire to Wire from the TVG studios. I'm Christina Blacker, joined by the Sarge, Nick Hines. We are here to tell you all about the MyRacehorse stable. And Sarge, when we last left last month, would you have believed me if I said the Kentucky Derby winner would be a horse by the name of Rich Strike at 80 to 1, one of the biggest upsets in history?
I would have probably said that you were crazy, but we all know you're not crazy. Yeah, no doubt. And, you know, we often talk about that chance of a lifetime and a lifetime of chance. And just amazing the chart in which Rich Strike had charted to going into the Kentucky Derby that first Saturday in May, but to not know until 36 hours out, roughly, at scratch time, that he wasn't going to draw into the race. And, you know, so many moving elements. You know, we had this conversation in-house regarding Edge, and in due time, unfortunately, he's going to be sent to the sidelines. We opted out of the Kentucky Derby, not for that particular reason, but, you know, it just fate, destiny, whichever you may have it, but that's what makes this sport what it is. Tremendous game.
We're going to talk much more about the Kentucky Derby because we know that you all have been talking about it. Any sports fan has been interested. Over 19 million people tuned in to watch this year's Kentucky Derby, so great signs for our sport that we all know and love. We'll get to that towards the end of the show. Let's talk about your winners first, the horses that have performed on the track for MyRacehorse. We have several highlights to get to. We're actually going to start with Search Engine. Here is a son of Flatter who's really sharp right now, Sarge. Back-to-back wins for him.
Well, he was a lofty two-year-old in training purchase last year, and, you know, certainly one that has stepped it up in a big way as a newly transitioned three-year-old. And, you know, tribute to the late, great Flatter, who unfortunately left us here just a few days ago. And our condolences and sentiments going out to Claiborne Farm. But now he's able to string two in a row, was Search Engine with this nice score at Hawthorne back on April 16th, earning a career-best 75 Beyer speed figure out of the Candy Ride mare Coca-Cola. And there's the look of a winner right there, Search Engine. Major kudos going out to Tom Amoss and his crew. And E.T. phone home, E.T. Baird in the irons, back-to-back victories. This horse certainly appreciating time and development mentally and physically. Next up,
Miss Sakamoto. She's always shown talent. She's been on the board in all three starts, but puts it all together for this maiden-breaking score in late April.
Yeah, no doubt, Miss Sakamoto. This was a nice win and certainly able to kind of gun down the horse that was getting the easy fractions there. And S. Muffin, and just a perfectly timed ride under Junior Alvarado. Took them out for Christoph. This was a $250,000 OBS and training purchase last year with props to Phil Hager, Bloodstock agent, working with Saratoga 7, MyRacehorse in a partnership. Onward and upward for this daughter. More than ready. Earned a 75 Beyer speed rating. She's never been off the board in 3 career starts.
How about a daughter of Gunrunner, 63Caliber, with a win by a nose at Indiana last out. And I love this because you're seeing that transition from the sprint to the route, and it was a gutsy effort.
Well, it was a gutsy effort showing plenty of moxie, resolve on display, and this has ascended to our CEO and founder's favorite horse in the stable, not showing any favorite, 63Caliber in career start number 2, coming back from a tie-back surgery for a throat correction there. Part of the Future Stars, 4,700 partners, a 66 Beyer speed rating. Tom Amoss again with that daughter of Gunrunner.
Duke of Love, the son of Cupid, the Ontario bred. He has 2 wins now, but this one by 5 1/4 lengths. Still learning a little green out there, but a big performance.
Yeah, that's a serious effort, Christina. Hadn't been seen since early December. Makes the 2022 debut a winning one, unbeaten over the synthetic track up there. And Josie Carroll doing an exceptional job. This horse purchased last year just $85,000 out of the Fazig Tipton Timonium Maryland sale, which will be coming up here in the next week or so. But nicely done here as Duke of Love out of that Smart Strike mare. Tell the Duchess. Plenty to like here. All eyes on Queen's Plate, perhaps on the 21st of August. And that's $1 million purse, first leg of that Canadian Triple Crown.
Yeah, anytime you have a horse that is 2 for 3 and an Ontario bred, as Duke of Love is, you can definitely start dreaming of the Queen's Plate. We had a chance to catch up with his conditioner, Josie Carroll, shortly after the win.
What I like about this horse, he's 2 for 2 on the synthetic. So obviously he likes the surface. He still has a lot to learn. I mean, we didn't see the best of him today. He was still looking around. Justin gave him a really good warm-up and focused him a little bit, but he's just still a young horse that's only going to get better, I believe.
All right, right back in to the winners. Look Who Got Lucky, the son of Lookin' at Lucky. Another victory last out, winning by a nose in the end. And he found his friends in here. It took 7 starts to break his maiden, but here's the effort where he puts it all together.
Well, the well-traveled son of Lookin' at Lucky, of course, coming in a partnership with L&N Racing. Out of that Fusaichi Pegasus mare, Ambleside Park, earned a career best Buyer speed figure of a 57. Another horse part of the Future Stars. Congratulations going out to those 4,700 plus partners. Steve Asmussen, well done, and nicely handled there to the wire. Look Who Got Lucky, making the 2nd start on the year. Another horse that may have developed with time and maturity as a 3-year-old. But as you alluded to, you know, sometimes these horses need to find their level of friendship. May have lost a few friends breaking that maiden, but I've always enjoyed this horse's spirit and character. He's certainly a kind soul, and I'll be interested to see if this horse does get the opportunity to try turf. He's certainly bred for it, but let's see what our Hall of Fame trainer has to say or do for that next move.
We'll look forward to those updates from Steve Asmussen. Speaking of trainers, Tom Amoss has quite a few horses right now for MyRacehorse, and our Joaquin Jaime from TVG had a chance to catch up with him about all of those runners.
We're here at Churchill Downs with trainer Tom Amoss to get an update on a few of the horses that are co-owned by MyRacehorse. Starting with the colt here in Search Engine, a $625,000 purchase, coming off back-to-back victories. What do you think the difference has been in the last 2?
I think it's maturity. I think Search Engine is a horse that's come along and, you know, developed well for us through time. He wasn't the fastest learner in the world, and you know, he's starting to understand the game, and he's becoming an improving and a good 3-year-old colt.
Anything picked out next for Search Engine?
So he's got another allowance condition ahead of him if we choose to do that. But whatever we do, whether it's the next allowance condition or possibly run against his age group in some sort of stake, it's going to be a big step up for him. So we want to give him plenty of time to prepare for that. He's shown that he likes a little time between races. We saw that in his most recent start. He's training well and has had a couple of good works for us over at Keeneland since his last race.
And then the filly, 63Caliber. She's coming off a maiden victory by a nose. What do you think of her race?
Well, I thought it was really good. Number one, we stretched her out to 2 turns for the first time, and it was the kind of race where her determination really got her across the wire, along with a really, really good, strong finish ride from Edgar Morales. So I liked her race a lot. She's now a maiden winner. That's really good. And again, she probably look for an allowance race for her next.
And then another colt in here, and Can't Hush This. He's still a maiden. What's the very latest on him?
So he's been gelded. We've had a couple of works since he's been gelded, one recently to this morning, and they've been good works. There's never been a question about his talent, his mental frame of mind for a race, particularly understanding how to leave the gate correctly and, you know, being okay being crowded by the horses. That's something we're working on. Probably 2 to 3 weeks away from running him, and don't be surprised you see him with blinkers next time. He's still a little bit shy about other horses. I want to get him focused on the race and not the horses around him.
Tom, we always appreciate the time. Thank you so much for the updates.
Thank you, Joaquin.
We've had the pleasure of working with Tom Amoss on TV quite a few times. He's a great horseman and just wonderful in these kind of roles because of his TV experience. Explains things so well. Just a good communicator on top of it.
I think the bottom line is when we have trainers that work for MyRacehorse, or in fact with Edge Racing, is that we do have that open door policy of transparency and knowing the process. I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, we don't necessarily want to hear the labor pains as much as we just want to see the baby. But the reality is this, is that we still need to know for feedback and learning the process, if you will. But you know the drill. Having been there as a former trainer, sometimes it's difficult. Some can't necessarily handle the truth, but in the world of MyRacehorse, we need the truth, full disclosure.
We do, and that's why we have shows and programs like this, the town halls, you name it. To the communication, definitely a key priority. So thanks to Tom for the time, and to Josie Carroll as well. Time for our work of the month. We're going to talk about a horse that's out here on the West Coast, and that is Carpe Venom. She is in training with Phil D'Amato. Nice work on the 8th of May, not long ago. 5 furlongs on the training track in here.
Well, she was entered and scratched out of the Grade 3 Wilshire on May 1st. That was by design to get a look-see in a partnership with Joey Platt's trainer Phil D'Amato. He felt that Carpe Venom was deserving of a stakes look, but feels that she's better suited to the additional ground. Her workout was in company with a stablemate in Busker Alley, certainly in another horse by the name of Countigan, which I'm sure you've heard of, graded stakes contender in his own right. But, you know, time-wise, does not reflect expect how the work actually went. I thought she was very fluid in this move. This is on May 8th, her third work, exiting that tough beat loss back on April 17th, in which she came up a nostril shy. But she is certainly stepping upward and onward. It looks as if the Grade 3 Santa Barbara on May 14th is that target at 1.5 miles, which they will start on the Hillside Turf Course. But all systems are a go. And this has been a great journey with her in a sense that, look, she was one of the original 2-year-old in training purchase in that partnership with Joey Platts. And, you know, when you look at her career, she's shown flashes of brilliance, but she's been very sound. I think one of the most difficult aspects of her is trying to get her into the right rhythm as far as race and spot placement to try and get some of that black type that you would hope for with a horse like this. But I feel great about her chances moving forward. She's a picture of health. Phil's done a wonderful job, and it is nice to have a partner like Joey Platts who's been patient and willing to do what's right and try to get that black type. So the Grade 3 Santa Barbara,
hopefully that distance will really allow her to find that momentum that you're talking about.
I think we're golden.
Yeah, longevity, definitely, with Carpe Venom. Looking forward to the Santa Barbara this weekend. Time now for our surprise of the month, and this goes to Infinite Empire. You know, she's always been pretty impressive. You go back to that career debut last year where she was second, not bad at all in her first career start, but she went to the sidelines after this race that you're taking a look at. This was in Del Mar on August the 21st. They found a very small fracture at the top of her right hind pastern. It was not an injury that required surgery, but she's had quite a bit of time off. The good news is she is back. She just had her first breeze back off of that layoff, and according to Richard Mandela, training really well.
Yeah, quite pleased with what we're hearing on Infinite Empire, and I think it really boils down to the fact that, you know, we talk about surprises. There are good surprises. Unfortunately, there are bad surprises. But, you know, the type of injury she had, it wasn't one that the team felt that she couldn't come back with. But I think more so is that she even looks better, bigger and better than even anticipated. But with that pedigree being by Empire Maker out of that Tapit Mare Tapestry, Infinite Empire in a partnership with my racehorse, you know, you had a race in which the likes of Ain't Easy. You remember her coming back in the front runner, ironically, for owner Joey Platts in partnership. And you also had Benedict Canyon, who came back, who was stakes place. So most undoubtedly the horse that I am looking forward to seeing her get back into swing, especially with the summer ahead. She is a 3-year-old filly with a tremendous talent, as evidenced by the debut. And that necessarily wasn't her distance. She showed some great run, a big gallop out that day, but she is a pleasant surprise indeed.
Physically and mentally maturing as well. So looking forward to the future with Infinite Empire. Speaking of the future, we want to talk about races that are upcoming right now. Here's a few targets that you can take a look at. We've already touched on Carpe Venom. That's the Santa Barbara on the 14th of May. It's actually going to be a pretty busy weekend. We'll talk more about War Safe in just a second, and then on down through the rest of the month. Edge Racing well represented on this graphic as well.
Yeah, indeed, and looking forward to also Tap the Gavel, who will be making the first run up there at Monmouth Park for Kent Sweezy, and that was a surprise last month. The horse that stepped up on the turf course, and also the return of Yes This Time at the end of the month. This is the son of Not This Time. We rattle off 5 straight for Edge, including the Grade 3 Kent under Joe Bravo, and Yes This Time been freshened for trainer Kelly Breen. Got to come back in the cliffhanger, and looking forward to what could be a very productive summer with that son of Not This Time. And of course, going to Vegas, who will look to tee off Memorial Day in the Grade 1 Gamely. The reports are that she is training very well for trainer Richard Baltus in a partnership with Medallion and Abadanza. We look forward to going to Vegas, and it could be a very productive May. Let's knock on wood for that one.
She's one of my favorites. I talk about it all the time. I feel like she is honestly so determined, so gutsy. I love watching Going to Vegas run, so definitely looking forward to that. She could have been my stable spotlight, but I'm going to give it to War Safe, the son of Air Force Blue, for this month. He spent the winter down in South Florida, as many horses do, especially if you're on the East Coast or if you're up at Woodbine. But he has returned to Woodbine now and is really thriving as he's been able to get back over that surface and back up in Canada. And why not? He's an Ontario bred. We are looking forward to a debut race from him, as you saw in that prior graphic, on the 14th of May. I love this work because he's fast from the gate, Sarge. He definitely has some power coming away from the blocks.
Well, he was a horse that we had purchased out of the OBS 2-year-old in training sale last year. And, you know, at the time in which we spoke to our global acquisitions chief there in Roderick Walkman, who'd made the trip down to Ocala, as this horse clocked beautifully when he breezed, but we knew full well at that point in time that time was going to be on his side. He was just a modest $90,000 purchase out of the AP Indy mare Safe Haven. But, you know, hail to the Canadians. It's an exciting time, right? After what we saw with Duke of Love, both being modest purchases. But as you mentioned, this horse, the big move out of the gate, a 48 flat, which was the sixth best of 82. So it will be great. It'll be very nice to see this horse kind of get onto center stage. I'm looking forward to that pre-race analysis with our East Coast representative and liaison in Harry Rice.
Sounds like he's going to be tactical and forwardly placed from what Josie Carroll has said as well. So we're safe. Looking forward to the debut coming up. That was my stable spotlight. You're going to go back to a classic, one that we all know and love, Tizamagician. What's the news with him?
Well, the news with him is that it's just great to see him back on the work tab. And, of course, he is one of the OGs, the original gangsters, if you will. I remember seeing him there at King's Equine with Raul Reyes as a youngster, a son of Tiz Now, with plenty of promise. Already proven graded stakes competitor as he makes his way back into and off of a layoff. Trainer Rich Mandela reports that he is moving quite well. In fact, a recent workout here on May 5th. And Joe Moran, our West Coast racing manager and manager of Edge Racing, reports that he is indeed a picture of health. Just a pair of three-panel spins. You know, this horse has earned in excess of, what, $683,000 in his career. He's going to be out to defend his Cougar second crown at Del Mar, that Grade 3 event he won last year. We hope that he can ascend into a Pacific Classic type horse, and why not? He's only 5 years of age. He's been given the time. Nothing in particular wrong, just kind of need to refresh and press the reset, and he's going to come back, I'm confident, in a big way. And a big thank you to our partners there with Spendthrift, who've also been very patient. So it's one thing I appreciate about the MyRacehorse model. As we've seen with some of these horses, things haven't necessarily worked out as well as perhaps we would have liked early on in the game, but with a little bit of patience, a little bit of faith, we certainly can see things through. And I think Tizamagician is a perfect case and example that despite not having any major problems, outside of the fact that there was a point in his career where he thought about being gelded, but thankfully that went out there. He's such a nice horse, and he certainly asserted himself.
One of the things that Richard Mandela does so well, too, is giving horses the time that they need and able to bring them back at their highest level. Because of that patience, it does pay off. And as you say, he's 5 years old. It's not as if we're talking about an 8 or 9 year old, which, by the way, Richard Mandela is very good at that, too. So don't be surprised if he's not still out there.
Absolutely.
Time now for our owner spotlight, and we're going to talk about a very special young man today. His name is Marshall Huff. He's just 11 years old, a huge fan of American Pharoah. So for that reason, he convinced his father to buy into Forbidden Kingdom so he could follow along with Forbidden Kingdom. Marshall was diagnosed with a very rare form of brain cancer. It's known as DIPG, and it impacts patients much like ALS would. His family is committed to raising awareness around pediatric cancer research, and they do so through a fund that's called Tough Together. If you wanted to learn a little bit more about it, we encourage all the MyRacehorse partners to do so. So Forbidden Kingdom, as we know, Sarge didn't make it to the Derby, but the MyRacehorse folks, the Coolmore folks, many people kind of coming together to make sure that Marshall had a trip to Kentucky and a very special experience.
Yeah, I can't even put into words and perspective. And of course, God bless Marshall as he is in the fight of his life. But the one thing that we've come to find is that horses are the best medicine. We've had ultimately the worst day, and of course, I can never put myself into the position that Marshall is dealing with. But big thank you to those that have taken the time. And unfortunately, Forbidden Kingdom couldn't go out there and dance the dance the first Saturday in May, but still, the fact that, you know, the team was able to get together and Marshall was able to be a part of that experience, I'm sure it's one that he will never forget. And our prayers and thoughts are with you, Marshall. And let's hope that somewhere down the line, into the summer, you'll be celebrating with Forbidden Kingdom right there in the winner's circle.
We definitely hope so. He had the chance to meet American Pharoah, to meet Got Stormy, to meet Authentic, to go to the Kentucky Derby. So we hope that that brought a smile to his face and certainly to his parents as well. More information, as I mentioned, Tough Together. If anyone would like to research or to donate, if you feel so inspired, please definitely do so. Speaking of youngsters, there's a program that is new called Amplify Jr. The ladies at Amplify have started their entire movement movement or campaign, basically to spread awareness about horse racing to a younger generation. But in this case, Amplify Jr. for children in that same age group, whether you're, have your 5-year-olds, your kindergartners, all the way up to the early teens. So through these programs, and MyRacehorse immediately jumped in to be a part of it as well, they invite these children 12 and under to go with their parents and guardians and learn about the thoroughbred industry. There are tours all through Kentucky, and they just started, actually, I was in Kentucky for the Keeneland meet and saw them kind of kick off this campaign. It's going from April to October and allowing these children to learn about the life of the thoroughbred and get MyRacehorse updates just as if they were owners themselves.
This is tremendous. And, again, founded in 2019, Amplify Horse Racing, a 501c3 nonprofit committing to the education and careers in the thoroughbred industry. And, we often talk about, how do you get the younger generation involved? For me, this is the best way. I mean, from a gambling perspective, I grew up in Las Vegas, and that's an unfortunate, but, I learned about horses, and I was, blessed to have actually grown up on a ranch. But for, these children that may not have that opportunity, the first time you meet a horse, just like my son Cash, who incidentally happens to be 12 years old, I remember the first time that I actually took him to the backside. It's one thing to go to the races and watch and be fascinated, but when you actually can interact with these horses and have the opportunity to just have that connection, I think it takes it to a whole nother level. And it's wonderful to see because, again, not only trying to give the opportunity for the younger generation to have that interactive with the thoroughbred, but the fact that we're trying to build the future in what is truly the greatest game.
There is a tour coming up at TaylorMade, same to be said for Fasig-Tipton, and also New Vocations. I think we've talked about them on the show in the past. That's where many horses go to sort of retrain and find their second career. So if you are interested, and if you know a youngster that you think might enjoy one of these events, head to MyRacehorseAmplify.com. That's MyRacehorseAmplify.com. As those 2-year-olds start to come into the track, we wanted to talk about a term that you may have already heard in years past or you may hear coming up in the future. Our inside scoop today is with regard to the term bucked shins, what that is, how it happens. And Sarge, I think the overwhelming message here is that this is something that's very common with young horses as they enter serious training.
No, absolutely. In the technical term, dorsal metacarpal disease, essentially periostitis, is what essentially happens. It's much like getting a shin splint. If you were to, say, run out here on the beaches in Southern California, not quite equipped to do so, your shins maybe a bit tender the next day. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the growth and development, as these horses mature through their multi-skeletal system. And I think that it's a natural occurrence. It happens in 70% essentially of those 2-year-olds that you see. But it is part of the bend but don't break development. I mean, obviously with the shin, it's not something that you want to pursue if a horse comes up. I mean, that's the sign, the natural sign of a horse to tell you to, hey, back off a bit, and then you're able to build that bone upon bone. You see certain elements, perhaps at a 2-year-old in training sale, you'll see a horse that might have a little bit of calcification on the front of the shin. There's a technique called scraping the shins, which can help alleviate a shin buck, but that's for a whole other time and story. But, again, when it comes to a buck shin splints in general, it's a common occurrence, and it's something they can certainly get over if treated properly.
Yeah, sometimes you can see a little swelling right down the front of that cannon bone, and usually it's just rest, right? As far as what you need to do, just back off a little bit,
right.
And when you do start training again, go a little slower to get into the serious routine.
Right, absolutely. And not all horses generally need to be taken out of training as a result of that. Some will continue in a jog mode. There was a graded stakes winner that I trained, this is many a year ago, and he actually incurred a stress fracture in the shin. And immediately I told my veterinarian, the attending vet, I said, would you just kick him out? He goes, nope, just keep him in a jog mode. We did some shockwave therapy on the horse. He never had a shin issue again, went on to become a graded stake winner, became Derby qualified. So this happens, these setbacks, and especially what's interesting when you look at the majority of horses that incur a shin buck, it generally starts with the left, being that horses run counterclockwise here in the United States. I don't know how it is down under or in other venues, but not uncommon, and certainly something that horses can get through.
As you say, about 70% of the time it actually can happen. So keep an eye out. We will definitely keep you updated if that does come into play with any of the young runners. And actually, we'll talk about some of the new 2-year-olds in just a second. Time for the Aftercare Spotlight now. We've told you a few stories over the last couple of months of horses that have entered completely new disciplines. Maybe they've gone into eventing or into show jumping. But what about some of the more traditional next steps that you would see from the real active racehorses, from those that we know, from the graded stakes events, from those weekend races? We'll start first with Collusion Illusion and on to stallion duty for him. And he's actually going to head up to Canada to Steve Kemp's brand new facility, Ballycroy Farm. That's in Ontario. And you'll be having the chance to go ahead and follow along with his stud career in the coming years.
Yeah, this is certainly a horse that, ended up being, a bit of a disappointment for us here with MyRacehorse. He came in, purchased with designs in a campaign in 2021 that we felt was going to work out. He was a Grade 1 winner by Twirling Candy, plenty of upside. But yeah, it's absolutely great to see that he gets an opportunity to reproduce. His talent was never in question. It just came down to the fact that he decided in the end that he had done what he had to do on the racetrack. He did compete, was third in the Grade 1 Malibu on behalf of us here at MyRacehorse, but in partnership with Rodney Orr, Jerry Schneider, and Dan Agnew, who's an immediate partner with MyRacehorse. The understanding was, hey, bottom line, he doesn't want to compete, but the good news is, he has been acquired by a reputable farm up there north of the border. Look forward to seeing his babies. He certainly earned it. The talent was never in question. Just came down to the fact toward the end of his career that he decided, I've done what I've done.
Yeah, they are building a state-of-the-art facility there at Ballycroy, so definitely looking forward, and you, I'm sure, can follow along with their website, keep to date and up to date on the next steps for Collusion Illusion as he enters stud duty in 2023. How about the fillies and mares and what their other opportunities are? Moonlight Doro is a horse to spotlight. She was campaigned in partnership with MyRacehorse and Spendthrift Farm. The Spendthrift Farm operation decided to purchase her from MyRacehorse, the 80% interest that MyRacehorse owned in her, and they just bred her to Horse of the Year Authentic.
Yeah, it's going to be a tremendous following, right? Knowing that Authentic, your Derby Horse of the Year, I mean, he did it all, and of course took us through darkness and light of what was a tremendous run, having won the Kentucky Derby, of course, coming back in a Breeders' Cup Classic, and with Spendthrift, and the fact that Moonlight Doro, she didn't necessarily evolve into her 4-year-old year, obviously proven as a 3-year-old. She was first on the map for the first Saturday with the Kentucky Oaks. Unfortunately, things didn't work out. She's a Grade 3 winning daughter of Medaglia d'Oro, but she had a nice career. She earned $222,000, but I think she's going to be a fan favorite to follow, getting in foal to the champ, Authentic.
Yeah, she'll be a good mom. Watch for those photos. She's had such a big, beautiful frame to her as well. I think she'll make a lovely broodmare, so you can see why Spendthrift's so anxious to have her in their broodmare band, and she will live a wonderful life there on the farm. Okay, back to those 2-year-olds. I mentioned the recent OBS April sale. Sarge, I know you were there. Actually, the last time we filmed this show, you were on a plane that next day, I believe. This was a competitive sale. I'll be honest, my husband went for his syndicate. They came home empty-handed. You guys got 3 colts in partnership with Jeff Bloom, helping to find these horses. Looking forward to seeing what they can all do on track.
Yeah, props to Jeff Bloom, of course, with a fun ride thus far in 2022 with Chasing Time, who will be making his return here shortly. But 3 prospects by Flatter out of Fenwick Hall, a son of the late great Flatter, worked in 10 flat with exceptional gallop out. I love the frame on this individual, and I think he is one that you may get a little earlier success than you would anticipate with a son of Flatter, who's purchased for $150,000, and then of course
he's the New York bred, right?
New York bred.
Okay.
Then you got a pair of Kentucky breds that worked exceptional, and the Good Magic, who worked 20 and 4 the assignment of Eddie Woods. That one being out lot relay, and then the son of Candy Ride from Wavertree out of the mare Spirit, purchased for $160,000. Worked 21 and 2. Kind of gives you the impression of a horse that may appreciate some added real estate. But when you get a Candy Ride, a Good Magic, and a Flatter, in one sale, as you mentioned. Very competitive market, but we do indeed look forward to these three as they move forward onto their race career.
I think it was one of the most successful sales OBS April that they've had in years. I just got that email blast this morning from the NTRA. So congratulations to the entire team coming home with those three colts. Lots more information will be forthcoming. You can always head to the website, head to the app if you want to learn a little bit more about each of those individuals. We're going to circle back to where we kind of started the show today. Question of the month, how, I think we're all still asking this, how did Rich Strike win the Kentucky Derby? Let's go back. Let's go back in time. Tell me about the early days for Rich Strike, his humble beginnings, and how he may have ended up on this path, Sarge.
Well, it is pretty remarkable considering the fact that you've got a son of Keen Ice out of a Smart Strike mare that when you look at hypothetical or matings that he came with an F Nick. Now, granted, Keen Ice, with all due respect and full disclosure, in the early part of his career at stud, but he debuted for Calumet. He was in the barn of Joe Sharp, competing on turf. And, you know, he failed to fire a shot. But the one thing that you have to consider in that is that he may not have shown much on the dirt. So why did they debut on turf? They immediately dropped him in for $30,000. You know, there was some talk that there was a major shake for the horse. It come to find out for owner Richard Dawson. And by the way, he goes as Rick Dawson, not as Richard Dawson on the late, great Richard Dawson on Family Feud. But it came down to one claim. He was the only one in. And it's a little ironic when you look at the journey and how it evolved. But you can kind of take it from there, because once this horse was able to break his maiden, he got a couple of stake slices, earned enough Kentucky Derby points to actually be on that proverbial window, outside window looking in. I
think it's a lesson in so many different things. He had 21 points coming into the weekend, and you look at the horses over the last couple of months, just chipping away. Every time you can end up second, end up third, those performances mean something in the end. Rich Strike was on the outside looking in. He was the first horse on the also eligibles, and the day before, and I saw an interview where they said they made it with maybe a minute to spare into scratch time. D. Wayne Lucas scratched his horse Ethereal Road, who was drawn towards the outside. That was the opportunity to allow Rich Strike into this field. And of course, I think we've all seen it so many times now, that replay. What a ride from Sonny Leone, who had never won a graded stakes race before. He's a great jockey. He rides routinely at Mahoning Valley, at Belterra. We show those races here on TVG all the time, but this was the race of his life and the ride of his life to get that win. If you haven't had a chance to look at the overhead view, the drone camera, I think as many people as they had watching the Kentucky Derby, I heard this morning on the talk radio as I was driving in, twice as many people have gone back and wanted to watch that replay. The story is still kind of being shared and being sent around because it was a remarkable effort from horse and rider. Well,
it's wild when you look at his career and how it's evolved. You know, you consider the fact that Keen Ice, you know, his coming out party is when he ironically beat American Pharaoh. It was a tremendous upset for a horse that went on essentially to become one of the greats that we've seen, at least in my lifetime. But considering the fact that the mare, kind of a humble beginning, ended up being a prize winner up north of the border in Canada. And then when you look at the numbers, the progression, how did the horse win? I kind of put it into perspective. They say that luck is when preparation and opportunity meet at a crossroad. I think in this particular case, it was freak luck because of the fact that he was able to get in the race. You know, when Eric Reed was asked the question, did you really think that you could win the Kentucky Derby? His response was not yes, but I felt that my horse had a chance to get a big piece. And indeed, it was Sonny Leone who rode a fearless race. So, you know, for a rider that had never been in front of 100,000 plus fans, that wall of noise. I remember having a conversation with Julie Crone once about the Kentucky Derby, and she said, Sarge, when you come off the turn, the crowd noise just lifts you up off the saddle. So I can only imagine that in the case of Sonny Leone, what he thought. But the one thing about it, when you go back and watch the replay, he never left the rail. And this goes back to Calvin Borrell, if you will, who did kind of a similar thing. So Sonny rode such a race, and I'm not convinced that anybody else could have ridden the race that he did. So I think it just puts into perspective what this game truly is. You know, you hope that chance, you get that opportunity. And as we preface the show with in due time, unfortunately, we as a committee decided that we wanted to bypass the Derby and focus on the Preakness, which if we stayed in the Derby, Rich Strike would have not had the opportunity to run. So let's call it fate. Let's call it destiny. And I look forward to seeing this horse's career evolve from here. And let's hope it does in a couple of weeks in the Preakness Stakes.
We look forward to seeing him at the Preakness. TVG is working on a feature right now on Eric Reed. Stay tuned for that. Scott Hazelton made his way to Mercury Training Center the day, I think it was 2 days after the Derby.
Oh, yeah.
And he told me yesterday, he said, if this isn't one of the best features we've ever done, I'm going to be really shocked, because it was a very candid interview. Eric Reed's been through a lot himself.
Yes.
And Mercury is actually right by Spendthrift.
Right.
That's where it's located. He's right there kind of on the heels of Spendthrift Farms. So good luck to them. We're all rooting for him coming up to the Preakness. And the last thing I do want to touch on really quickly is the outrider afterwards. There's been a lot of chatter about this after the fact. Greg Blasi was the outrider who did pick up Rich Strike to kind of hold on to him, get him ready for the post-race interviews, keep him safe, and keep the folks that are standing on the racetrack safe. Remember, there's hundreds of people standing on the track after the Kentucky Derby, mostly media members. And I think there was a lot of confusion, Sarge. This was a dangerous incident. This horse was biting him.
Yeah.
This horse was biting the pony. This horse had the pony's reins in his teeth a few times.
He was savage.
It was,
Like,
yeah.
I think if you actually look, obviously even in the pre-race, they talked about the pony girl escorted him to the gate. She was bitten several times to that. And when you go to the B-rolls for Rich Strike, you know, they've got the lip chain on him. He's a tiger, and I made this comment on the air here on TVG. You know, it's one thing to go to a zoo and see a lion or a tiger or a bear and know that they can bite. But when a horse comes at you full frontal with the teeth, it's a scary thought, because, you know, horses, you know, they're obviously defending their territory, but major props going out to Greg Blasi. That's a scary moment. What if the horse gets loose, he runs off? But I think all in all, this is truly a wonderful story with Eric Reed, and the fact that he was able to come back from such a deficit and that terrible barn fire that he had. But great win, big win, and it just goes to show you, you just never know.
We are coming up on Friday the 13th, and maybe that is something that matters to you, maybe it's not. We want to talk about superstitions in racing. Many horsemen, the trainers, the jockeys, the owners have superstitions that they follow. I personally don't. My husband doesn't. He's a real scientist with his mind, kind of just goes with the facts, not superstitions. But a lot of people do have them. So I don't know, Sarge, did you have any when you were training or through till now with these days?
I mean, as you all know, having grown up in Las Vegas, you know, superstitions are A100. I mean, things I don't do. I will not walk under a flight of stairs directly. I will not walk near a ladder, much less climb on top of one. But black cats were the biggest thing for me. I mean, I literally, if I saw a black cat cross the road in front of me.
Like on race day? You thought that was it, we're losing.
Absolutely. I would actually back my car up trying to get out of the way just to say, you know, he didn't cross in front of me. I was backing up out of there. But then I would sometimes hunt the cat down and make sure that he didn't have like a white stripe. So I felt better. But truth be told, yes, there are superstitions. And I think the other point is when you get certain numbers. Right. Now, obviously, I didn't like to draw in post position number 6. That was a superstition for me. Not that I would scratch because the owners are paying the bills, but 6s, black cats, ladders, and of course, staircases. Do not walk under a stairwell.
Tom Morley, one of the MyRacehorse trainers, won't do any interviews beforehand. And I might have to take that up with him myself personally, because it makes our job a lot harder. And trust me, those interviews are not the reason why, if you do lose a race. Tom loses and wins plenty of races out there, and it's not because of the interviews. But we definitely hear that actually over the years all the time at TVG. I think it's just people that don't want to be on television, which is fine too. You can get a little nervous.
I never, you know, my mother once told me, she goes, you know, you'll do good in what you do because you like to hear yourself talk. For me, the interviews, I think it's a tremendous thing. But you know, I think some trainers honestly feel, I think you hit the nail on the head. But for those that don't, it's your loss.
If you have any superstitions, let us know. We'd love to hear. Send them to us on Twitter. Maybe share them next time you are online with one of the MyRacehorse programs. We hope you've enjoyed Wire to Wire again here this month. Lots of exciting stuff to talk about, not only with regard to the horses, but just racing in general. It's a great time to be a horse racing fan. We'll talk to you again next month after the Preakness, as we are heading into the Belmont, maybe, fingers crossed, with a Triple Crown on the line. For the Sarge, Nick, Hines, I'm Christina Blacker here from the TVG studios. We'll see you next time.